Good morning, everyone. I was just telling Deirdre I haven't done a Facebook Live in a week, and she's my first one back, and so I'm excited. Technology is on our side this morning, and I have missed doing Facebook Lives. And secrets out, I was down visiting my parents. I don't usually, some people knew I was away, but I will say that it was fun to go away. It looked like people were traveling again. Delta Airlines, it was busy in the airport, so that was the good news. Deirdre, welcome. Everyone's about to hear this beautiful accent. She's in New York, but as I said to her, that is not a New York accent.
No,
Welcome.
thank you. Thanks for having me on.
That is an Australian accent that we're about to partake. Deirdre is the founder of Growth Boss, a leading mentorship program for e-commerce business owners wanting to scale a multiple 6 to 7 figures using the power of tribe building. We are going to find out what all of that really means. I love this because look how young she is. She's a serial entrepreneur.
I think my Asian genes just make me look younger than I really am.
Your Asian genes. Can we all get that?
Yeah.
I think we're jealous of that. Um, you have founded and led 5 businesses across 3 industries in 7 years. Okay, yeah, I for sure want those Asian genes. So I don't really want to read your bio. I want you. I always say that I'm given these bios because I make everyone give me a bio, but really the truth is I'm such a people person. I'd rather you tell me who is Deirdre Tshien and what is the Growth Boss?
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, I always, that's why I always ask before we start recording, do you want the
Talk as
short
long as you
version
want.
or the long version?
Talk. I have at 11 o'clock with a client, so we have till then.
So I think for me, the context of my upbringing and I guess where I come from, and I find it sometimes important to talk about this because it kind of gives you a bit of an idea of what drives me. And my parents, as you can tell, Asian. So my parents are from Malaysia originally, and migrated to Sydney in Australia to give my brother and I a better life, better opportunities, better education, all of that. And so I kind of grew up, I started getting tutored when I was like in year 2 or year 3, like, really young, because that was kind of, that was my path. And so I grew up going to doing tests to get into the best classes, the best schools, all of that. And my dad wanted me to become a doctor, as a lot of, and I'm sure a lot of other first migrant Asian children can empathize with this, but yeah, being the doctor was the thing. Right. And I was on that path and very quickly realized that I hated science. Why am I going to do this thing, do this lifelong
That's really
career?
a problem. Yeah. I will tell you, you probably don't want to be a doctor if science isn't your thing.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Or blood. I gotta say, right.
Yeah, totally. And so I think that was my first foray into, unfortunately disappointing my parents, was being like, oh, I can't do that. But I
told you I was a mother of 3. It won't be the first and last, but yes.
But I compromised. I compromised with my parents. I was like, hey, I'm not going to become a doctor, but what I'll do is I'll study law. And the reason why was because in the universities in Sydney, to do a law degree, you actually have to do a double degree. And so what I really actually wanted to do was study business. And so that was kind of my way in. And fast forward a little bit, I went into corporate. I was really fortunate at that point to be working on this really big program of work. And I was in these rooms with senior executives all the way to the CEO, because it was a really big program that we're working on. And I got, even at that young age, I was seeing all these people in the room, and I was seeing how they were interacting with each other, all the politics that was happening, all the back channeling that was happening, and I was like, "Oh, I just don't think this is going to be it for me."
Yeah.
I just couldn't imagine having to compromise myself or my values that much, to, climb the corporate ladder. And so I think, pretty early on, I was like, I know that business, like having my own business, is probably going to be the thing. I just didn't know what. And so I was kind of like treading water for a few years, still doing the corporate thing. And then at the same time, and then at this moment, my then partner, now my husband, so he was studying medicine, but he was hating it. He was hating it. And but what he found this passion in because we just moved out as well, in cooking and baking specifically. And I have this my favorite dessert that we used to go to this one Italian restaurant to get, and it's like this molten chocolate lava cake, and it was just so
I'm with you.
and so beautiful, right? And so he would be trying to perfect this dessert for me, and because he was enjoying it, so we were like, why don't we do this? Why don't we just try? Again, still young. We didn't have many obligations or commitments, mortgages, nothing like that. It was just like, but what we did have, or I guess in a way I say positively, what we did have was naivety, right? We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into.
So let me ask you, like, as an entrepreneur, don't you think, I think that is maybe the first ingredient.
Oh, massively.
When I talk to entrepreneurs, like,
Yeah.
I sometimes think like dreaming and naive to you are a good, start. I mean,
Yes.
some entrepreneurs might say like stupidity goes with that, but I think that's like
100%. I think you need to, like, because I can tell you, if I knew what we were going to have to battle with, all of the stress, the failures,
you don't do it.
You wouldn't do it. Yeah,
No.
you wouldn't do it.
No, of course you wouldn't. You would talk yourself out of it.
Yeah,
And
100%.
but like I think that, but I do think this, and I was telling you before, about my daughter, being an actress, and I always think about this, that her professors would say, if you can think of anything else you'd want to do, then that's what you should go do, because it's hard to be an actress or an actor. And so I think that's true of being an entrepreneur. If you can think of anything else you'd rather do, then you better go do it, because that road up that hill is really hard, and you're going to go down, and then you're going to go back up and down and up, and so, I would think that if you can think like you'd rather go sit at corporate America or in a cubicle, then that's probably where you need to.
100%. I think you're totally right. And, that's only been exacerbated, I think, by, I've been speaking to a lot of entrepreneurs lately, and some have kind of found their way there right now because of, unfortunately, with the pandemic, the job situations, things like that. And I think that some people are trying to make it work, but because it is hard. It's hard, and it's not for everyone. That, I think very quickly we're going to see an exodus.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, right now, as an entrepreneur, you have to sort of be your own cheerleader. Number one, you have to get up in the morning and say, I can do this, when everybody's like sort of slamming you down. You have to look for the financial ways to do it, which is challenging.
Yeah.
And that strive to keep going. As I talk to people, it's that in itself is the mental anguish. You work, I mean, first and foremost, as a business coach, a consultant. I talk to a lot of business coaches, and I do ask this question because I work with a business coach. I think he's fabulous, but there's a sea of them. And so I'm pretty clear on saying to people, everybody should work with a business coach. It's sort of I say everybody should have a therapist, you know,
Yes.
everybody should have their
Same.
tribe of good friends,
Yes.
you know, but a business coach, you know, you have to have the right business coach. It's like having the right group of friends who support you, the right therapist who, you know, but in a sea of business coaches, not every business coach is equal. I mean, so what makes you and what you do, you know, unique or seeking you out? Because I really, when I bring people on in your field, you know, I want people to, you know, seek you out and go to your website, which and you have a podcast. I think, you know, it's, I want to bring all these, you can find you on social media, you have a podcast, your website is thegrowthboss.com. This is my sales pitch at this
Thank you.
point.
Yeah.
I always say that. But you know, what's unique to that someone needs you over someone else?
Yeah. So I have a very different approach to, I think, a lot of e-commerce business owners, and that approach really is, you know, I think we hear a lot in the industry, especially for e-commerce, is that it seems pretty simple, right? You have a product, you create a website, and then you just need to start running ads to it. Maybe have an Instagram page as well in between, but really you start running ads. And I've done it myself in terms of trying that path and realizing that does not work. As you know, I've started and scaled multiple businesses, so I know, and they you know, they traversed, you know, hospitality. I started in hospitality, went into technology, and then into e-commerce. I also had my own agency, and now we're kind of like looking to scale away from agents like done for you services into done with you. And basically my breadth of experience has led me into finding all these different frameworks and strategies that actually just fundamentally work, regardless of what industry you are in. Why I like e-commerce is because I'm a bit of a nerd about I think e-commerce is fun because there's a ton of different things that you can do that, for example, you just can't do it with hospitality.
Right.
And so I'm a bit of a nerd that way. But the fundamental things across all of them work. Things like building human connection. And a lot of times when people go into e-commerce, the thought is, well, I don't either, you know, a lot of people are introverts and they don't want to be connecting with their customers in that way, which I'm an introvert myself, and I'm very quick to say, like, unfortunately, even though you're an introvert, you're still human. And so what that means is because people connect with people. That gets lost in the mix of a lot of, you know, for e-commerce businesses, a lot of new e-commerce businesses, because they just kind of told, again, have a website, have some kind of social media presence, start running ads, and you'll see, you know, that's what
the traffic will come.
Exactly. And that just unfortunately isn't actually the case.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've done in my time is I've dug deep into going, okay, like, what are these things that we're kind of getting told? I've tried them myself.
Mm-hmm.
I figured out that they don't work, or they do, but you just need particular pieces in place that will make it work. Things like actually knowing who your audience is. So I'm actually a big believer in how can you drive traffic without spending money on ads first? And ways to do that are things like actually going out, finding your ideal buyers, and having conversations with them. And it's daunting, it is, because, you know, putting yourself out there in any way, in any form, is always going to be incredibly, that fear of rejection, right, is always going to be a real one. But, you know, and so we do a lot of mindset work on that. But, you know, and then apart from that, it's like, why that's really valuable is because when you start to actually find out about or get to know your audience, then you can more cost effectively scale that with ads, because otherwise you're going to be spending a lot of time and a lot of money trying to find your audience when you don't know who they are.
I couldn't agree more. And as a publicist in marketing, I always shoot from that angle too. I start with branding. I start with who is your audience. And I'm so glad that you said that. And I spend a lot of time with leading with that message. And so I'm always happy to have other people in different parts of the industry reiterate that. So I appreciate that message, because as a business coach working in e-commerce, to hear you say, who's your audience? Know your audience, which is what I say, because so often people think in the old way of, let's place an ad, or we see an ad on TV, our audience will find us.
Yeah.
The audience is too grand and too big anymore. And your audience has so many places to go these days.
Yes.
They're between the digital, the streaming, the print. People still look at print, and social media, that if you don't know where your audience is looking, and the other component of that is you have to target different audiences depending on your product.
Yeah.
I have clients from jewelry to clothing, and different ages, that again, you can't just send them to Facebook when their audience is over at Instagram.
Yes, exactly.
When different ages. So I love that, as a business coach, and you're talking to e-commerce, the first thing you're saying to someone is, who's your audience? I would venture to guess that about 85% think they know who their audience is.
Yeah.
But they haven't reevaluated, not necessarily who their audience is, but where their audience is actually viewing or
exactly. And I'd even take it a step further, not just like evaluate, but like validated, like actually found, because it's, in a way it's relatively, I wouldn't say it's easy, but simple to come up with your avatar, right? Your customer avatar, and be like, yeah, my person is called Catherine and she's this and that. And, but then it's like, okay, go out and find that person. Right? Go and validate that actually that person is going to actually buy your thing, because that's where the human connection bit comes in, because until you validate that, again, like you can have a hypothesis in your mind, but or like with all other assumptions or hypotheses, we have to validate them, otherwise they're not true, they're not real. And so I think that's also the missing link sometimes, in when we try marketing.
How long is the process does it take as you're working with someone? I think, I don't know that I often ask that question, because we're in such a quick fix or make it happen.
Yeah. So it's there's no like kind of linear, like, oh, it takes 2 weeks to do this. And, but it's quick in the sense that it's iterative. Because it's never like one of those, and I'm sure, like it's never set and forget type thing anyway. So every time that you go out with a hypothesis and you're testing it, you're very quickly either like you're iterating it in some way, and look, to be honest, we haven't seen this happen a lot, but you might even pivot, because you're having these conversations and they're actually telling you that actually the thing that they care about, or the thing that they would spend money for, or, whatever it is actually this other thing that will still solve the problem that you're looking to help them with, but it was just not the thing that you started with, if that makes sense. So
no, I think that's I think that very often when I talk with my business coach, I'm over here and all of a sudden he moves me, he directs me and makes me think differently. It may be where I started, but he gives me a different way of thinking about it, or, I think that I do that with my own clients, that I just get them on the right path. And so it is a pivot. It's often a pivot. I mean, that's the job of a business coach. It's a job sometimes of a marketing expert, to guide your client.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not to say that, that money can't be made in the meantime, but it's always like, what is that? How do we optimize? How do we make it even better? How do we reach more people? How do we scale it? That's really where those, slight tweaks can happen. And that's why I can't really say it's going to take, this long, because it's kind of it's a bit of an ongoing process.
Is there, when people come to you, is there something that, is there some kind of misconception, or that in their minds they think that you're going to fix and they have in their mind, and that you could do
Yeah.
for them?
I think the big one is, and I don't know whether it's that they come to me thinking that I'm going to be able to fix it, but a big misconception I think just generally with a lot of new business owners that I see is the whole build it and they will come mentality.
Yeah.
All right, like, and I don't blame people
I get that
because
all the time. Put me on TV and like my sales will jump through the roof. I
yeah,
have to tell you that I lead with every new prospect with, things people hear me say this all the time, that everything is like a wheel and or a bike, and there's spokes. And if we do all these different things, we will garner new sales. But if you just go on TV or we just have a news story, that
yeah.
is not going to do it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And that kind of almost links in with what we were talking about with the iteration and the pivoting.
Right.
Is that I think we always, like, we start a business because we are anchored in something, whether that's a product or whether that's a problem or whether whether that's a customer that we want to be solving something for. We always come to it with a starting point, and I find that the best businesses, or the most successful businesses, are the ones that can go from that starting point but be open enough to be like, hey, I know that there's the whole build it and they will come doesn't work. I need to build with I need to build with my community. I need to build with my, like, I need to
With
actually
all the
listen.
tools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times that's where the misconception, or the what do I like the misunderstand or miscommunication can sometimes come in, because it's like, I can only really help up to a point. But really, as the business owner, as the person, that's fronting this business and wanting to make this successful, like, you kind of have to be open to the fact that, hey, maybe the thing that you thought was going to be the best thing since sliced bread is actually maybe not, or maybe only serves quite a small subset of customers. But if you really want to scale past that, you're going to have to think a little bit differently. So I think that's probably where sometimes the misconception can come in.
Well, I so enjoyed our conversation. I come back anytime. I want updates, and especially, you're living in New York, and here in Michigan, things are opening up a little bit more every day. And I think that we're going to start to see, it's nice. You have the sunshine out today. So I think we're going to start to feel businesses opening up even more and more. So we're going to
Definitely
have some nice changes. So come back and talk anytime.
Yeah, awesome.
How do people find you?
Sure. So I actually am, in a couple of weeks, I have my free 3-day challenge that I'm going to be holding. So that's to help any e-commerce business owners out there who want to find your audience and start converting them. So you can sign up to that at www.thegrowthboss.com/challenge. So it's super cool, super exciting, and it's free. So come join us.
I'm going to make sure we put that up on this link today. For sure, go to it. I think it's a great way to find out more information about you and what you're doing. And I'm definitely going to suggest it to some of my clients who, they're really venturing into their sites now. They had to, adding e-commerce, and because you build it doesn't mean they'll come.
Yes, exactly.
You have to work at it, and you have to spend a little time. It becomes a whole business, a new business way of doing things. So
for sure. Yeah.
Deirdre, thank you so much. I hope to meet you when I get to New York.
Yeah, definitely.
I hope that to be, everybody who knows me knows. I hope that to be super soon, in the next month or so.
I'd love that.
I'm missing New York a lot. I always say I'm missing my daughter in New York, but I'm missing just being in New York.
Just
for
the city.
Sure.
We can definitely go get brunch. We'll get some.
I would love to go get. That's one of my most favorite things to do in New York. You hit it right off the bat.
Yes.
No question. All the best. Keep everything going, because really what you do is such an important tool to the growth of these businesses, small and large. You just, you can't, it's another, as I say, spoke in the wheel, you know? So I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. And thank
All
you for
right.
having me on.
All right. Let's stay in touch.
Will do.
Bye.
Bye.